Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. As the city declares intimate partner violence an epidemic, Windsor police say updated numbers back it. They've partnered with a local organization to try to prevent violent acts. Plus, Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare is moving its mental health programs to a new location, one they say will be more efficient. And what do you think? Is Windsor a romantic city? We check in with a Michigan couple who headed this way for their honeymoon. When it comes to intimate partner violence, reaching out for help can be the hardest step. A new Windsor Police partnership with Family Services Windsor Essex is trying to make that easier. Through the new program with consent, officers will identify individuals who've been victims of non-physical abusive behavior and connect them with Family Services, instead of victims having to reach out themselves. Family Services will then provide the necessary support to help reduce potential escalation of future violence. The goal of the program is to intervene early.
As service providers, we're typically, people are being referred into us, but with this new initiative, it feels a little bit more like outreach, that we're touching people's lives at an earlier point to reduce the likelihood of coming through a program like PAR. Right, where at that point there's already been a victim. We can't continue to work downstream and being responsive when a charge has already taken place. We have to start to look upstream and look at new initiatives and what's working within other communities to help reduce those rates.
The City of Windsor, along with other municipalities, have declared intimate partner violence an epidemic. Windsor police say it's a huge portion of their calls. Almost 40% of crimes against people in the city of Windsor and Amherstburg are intimate partner violence related. Since the start of this year, so in just 6 months, there's been more than 600 intimate partner violence complaints where no one was arrested or charged, and 646 people have been arrested and charged. Police say those numbers indicate advocacy is working.
Like every year, it's going up. People are more aware of the importance of reporting intimate partner violence. Neighbors are more aware, family members are more aware, so reporting is going up. I know that this is going to have a significant impact for the city and for Amherstburg on IPVs.
The program started May 1st, and 33 individuals have been supported through that program since. Well, a fire has displaced 22 men at an addictions recovery center on Olette Avenue this morning.
I was stuck in the stairwell. He ran in front, and I couldn't see. The smoke was so thick I couldn't see, and I was just breathing it all in. I made it down to the second floor. I didn't know where I was, and then I couldn't breathe. The smoke was just so thick that I couldn't even see my hands in front of my face. I didn't know where to go. I was just holding the railing, trying to get down to the exit. Then I heard another one of our buddies, Justin, screaming outside, saying, "Get out, there's a fire, get out, get out." And I just followed his voice and got me out of there, and I almost fainted. I was throwing up. I went down to the hospital for smoke inhalation.
In the meantime, all of the men are currently at the Launchpad Recovery Center on Dougal Avenue. They're looking for water, food, and clothing for those affected by the fire. The Ontario Fire Marshal's office is also investigating. It's unclear what sparked the fire or how much damage was caused.
The first floor is pretty much done. I was on the second floor. The flames came through the floor of my bedroom. So my bedroom got the worst of the second floor, but pretty much it looks like it's gonna get gutted, but back to square one of not having a place to go home.
Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare is moving its mental health programs downtown. They're currently located on the west side of the city. The goal is to deliver services more quick and efficiently. As Dale Mullner explains, that will start June 24th.
Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare is moving out of its current location on Olette Avenue and into Windsor Regional Hospital's Olette campus. That's right next to the emergency department. The new location will house its mental health and addictions urgent crisis center, giving people experiencing a crisis who may want to harm themselves faster access to mental health treatment.
So if you're 16 years of age or older and you don't have access to primary care and you don't have other options, rather than going to an ER, we can divert from the ER to support our friends at Windsor Regional Hospital and provide far more specific care as it relates to any mental health or addictions crisis. Again, 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
The Canadian Mental Health Association is also participating in the partnership. The CEO says having the center right next to the emergency room is more convenient.
They would walk in the door in the adjacent space right beside the Olette Campus Emergency Department, much like they would have at 744 Olette. So they will walk in the same way for the same hours and access the same supports and services. So that includes crisis from a CMHA perspective. It's certainly access to primary care if needed, and then other wraparound supports.
So it's a side-by-side collaboration, and it does make sure that if a patient who goes to the crisis center maybe becomes more ill than they initially thought they were, we've got direct access to the emergency department. And likewise, if somebody comes to the emergency department that may not be experiencing a true emergency, we've got direct access to these outpatient services with Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare.
Meanwhile, Hotel Dieu Grace will be moving its outpatient mental health treatment programs here to 500 Olette Avenue, also starting on June 24th, except for the Assertive Community Treatment Program, which will be starting in July.
They work with about 200 different clients throughout the community that require some support as they're dealing with mental health and addictions type diagnoses. The clinics are also going to be very supportive on a number of different fronts, different services as well, in partnership with the Canadian Mental Health Association. And those hours of operation are going to be 8 a.m. until 8 p.m., 7 days per week.
A limited walk-in crisis service will be available during the transition period of June 17th to the 21st at 744 Olette, and anyone experiencing mental health emergencies can still go to the ERs during that time. Hotel Dieu also offers a 24-hour crisis line at 519-973-4435. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Another opioid alert has been issued in our community because of the high number of overdoses. The Windsor-Essex Community Opioid and Substance Strategy says there were 15 overdoses reported at local emergency departments over the course of a week between June 2nd and June 9th. Of those 15, 9 of them involved fentanyl. It's the second alert issued in 2 weeks. The week prior, there was an additional 15 opioid overdoses reported. 8 of those were linked to fentanyl. A new fence will be added to Sandpoint Beach. That's after 2 men in their 20s drowned last month. The city is trying to find ways to stop people from swimming on the west end of the beach. Harbor Master Peter Barry hopes the new fence will be effective.
I've been involved in 5 recoveries off that beach in 15 years. And in that 15 years, that corner has been the causes of it every time.
The deaths last month spurred calls for the city to go to greater lengths to block off that dangerous section of beach. That new fence will block off 15% of the west end. It's also updating bylaws so police officers can fine people that swim in the closed section. The harbor master wants signs to warn people they have a chance of dying if they enter the water.
There was plenty of signage. The signage itself in conversation probably should be a little more drastic. That swimming here will cause death. Not that it's dangerous, it kills. So what I would encourage all of you, as you review in the future what the design of the beach will be, is find a way to have it so absolutely nobody wants to go to that corner.
In less than an hour, public school board trustees will be making some tough choices as it tries to balance the books. The Greater Essex County District School Board is facing a $6.4 million deficit for the 2024-25 school year. The most aggressive option on the table would be to eliminate the equivalent of 65 full-time jobs. If the trustees don't scale back, it would trigger significant supervision and reporting requirements from the province, including approval from the Minister of Education. The recommended option is a bit of both, the elimination of some staff positions while also running a deficit. When you Google popular honeymoon spots, places like the Amalfi Coast and Maui come up. But for one recently wed couple from Michigan, Windsor was the perfect place to spend their romantic getaway. And as the CBC's Jacob Barker was told, the Rose City lived up to expectations.
Well, we went out to find out if Windsor-Essex County was a romantic enough place for people to take their honeymoons. What we found was that there are mixed reviews on the streets of the Rose City.
Not for a honeymoon, no. I don't think so. I think you have to go like like outside of the country for that.
Windsor, with the temperature and the skyline of Detroit on the other side, is a perfect place to be. Want a kiss?
But for one couple just over the border, spending their honeymoon here was never even a question.
It's like a real laid-back environment that is still welcoming at the same time. So we knew that it was the place we wanted to have our honeymoon.
The Tiptons are from Clinton Township, about 40 minutes away. They came here early on in their relationship and keep coming back.
For us, it's about a 45-minute trip, and it feels like we've traveled to Florida. We definitely like that getaway feeling without the hustle and bustle of getting on a plane or traveling, hours and hours away.
Yeah.
They stayed in a downtown hotel, tried their luck at the casino, took a trip to the county, and even got some couples massages. Hundreds responded when Malia put out an online call for things to do.
And I think a lot of people don't really appreciate or understand like the gem that is Windsor. You even have to look hard. Like there's just so much going on.
Right now, honeymoons are on the radar for Tourism Windsor Essex Pelee Island. They're partnering with businesses to help build one-of-a-kind experiences people can do together, a conscious effort to tap into the love market and lure couples across the border.
So you look at sketch pottery in Lakeshore. Michael DeFazio does charcuterie board classes. We have candle making classes. And they all relate to that doing things together, which is really in that romance and relaxed aspect.
Experiences like these have special meaning for Toner right now. He's on his own journey of love.
So I'm relatively newly single and newly in love, I guess. It's a reinvigoration in my life of what I'm doing, but it relates directly to how we try and promote to couples, and I'm experiencing that on my own, which is really cool.
For the Tiptons, they say they do plan to keep coming back to Windsor, as the city now holds a prominent spot in the story of their marriage.
Us now having Windsor as our, honeymoon spot, it's definitely on the docket to return and complete the circle, so for me, 1 year sounds about right.
Or sooner, they say, if something fun to do pops up. Jacob Barker, CBC News, Windsor.
When we're in the trenches of life, the thought of doing just one more thing can be overwhelming, but it's in those moments Missy Chenier wants to help. She's one of the few certified yoga therapists in Canada. CBC Windsor morning host Amy Dodge sat down with her at her Lakeshore home.
My daughter Emma, who is 24 now, was born with cystic fibrosis. We had to learn how to manage a fatal genetic disease. It took a toll physically, it took a toll mentally, it took a toll emotionally. I had dabbled in yoga before the kids were born, and a little bit after. What I noticed was in the doctor's appointments, once I started with a little bit more of a regular yoga practice, that I had a clarity that I had lacked before. I was able to be present in a way that I wasn't before I started practicing yoga. I met a woman who was studying yoga therapy, which I had never heard of, at a school in Bloomfield Hills. And she told me the name of the director of the school, and I reached out to her and I laid out my vision that I would bring yoga to the parents of chronically and critically ill children as a way to help manage the stress of this caregiving role, because it had helped me, maybe it will help someone else. When I did my training, we trained clinically within the hospital system in Michigan, so at Henry Ford Health System and at Beaumont Hospital, which is now Corewell Health, and we worked in procedure with people. And so that's a really unique opportunity because it's the only school that does that in the world.
A downtown city block is being shut down in Windsor for Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals. Pitt Street East between Olette and Goya will be closed for part of the day tomorrow. The event starts at 6 p.m. and the game itself begins at 8. There will be a giant LED screen broadcasting the game live and extended patios for restaurants on the street. The event is free and open to people of all ages. Organizers say guests are encouraged to bring a lawn chair to enjoy the game. We all love a good block party, Colette, but I will say they are much more enjoyable when the weather cooperates.
Yeah, and I just want everyone to stay aware of those weather conditions because, Yeah, we have this set up where it's the kind of thing that draws you outdoors if you like some heat and humidity and that feel of summertime, right? Plus a great reason with the Stanley Cup being on. But it's also the kind of situation where we have the risk of some thunderstorms and possibly some isolated severe cells. And the timing is going to be into the evening. Let me play it all out for you. The important thing is the enhanced or higher risk is away from southwestern Ontario, more towards central eastern Ontario, okay? But isolated severe, not out of the question. And even if you just get caught in some downpours or some gusty winds, that's not terribly pleasant. So starting off with the conditions we have right now, it's 28 degrees. Yes, that temperature really climbing with that breeze out of the south. The humidex is at 30, so the humidity hasn't really climbed yet, but it will be climbing as we move into Thursday. And this south to southwesterly flow will be picking up as well. So those winds are going to become stronger. So tomorrow afternoon and evening, the gusts are really going to be picking up through here. We have a quiet evening. Why couldn't it be tonight, right? A quiet evening on our hands here, but it is this front back to the west of us that is incoming. And so as it approaches, the timing is actually sort of with peak daytime heating, that lift is coming in, and that's why it means the heightened chance of the severe weather kind of right through parts of southern Ontario. So a few things bubbling up to the north and maybe tagging through Sarnia earlier in the day. Yes, that chance is there just because of how buoyant things are. But the cold front itself kind of coming through between about 5 and 9. But what you'll notice is, more activity is along the central part of that front and not so much here. I do think still there'll be some wet weather, but hopefully not those severe cells, but here and there a few downpours. So just be prepared for that. Be prepared for those winds getting strong too, because when you've got a wind gusting to 60 kilometers an hour, that can pull some things down around you or pull the hat off your head or your umbrella out of your hands. So that's going to be that nature of this as well as the front goes through. Once it's through, then things kind of calm back down again. So overnight tonight, 20 degrees will be the low. The dew point is still a little bit on the lower side, but I do see that climbing, and that's why I'm keeping that warmer overnight temperature. And then 32 tomorrow, feeling like 37. It's going to make you want to be out on patios or, out enjoying some of these conditions. Or some people, it's going to have you hiding indoors in with your air conditioning on. As we go towards Friday, more comfortable Saturday. And then Sunday, we're going to begin that climb again. And I was talking about this last night. As we get into the beginning of next week and through mid next week, some very summer-like conditions, even though summer doesn't officially begin until next Thursday.
Okay, looking forward to checking in tomorrow. Thanks for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
After the break, Premier Doug Ford's plan to expand alcohol retail will also allow the beer store to sell more than beer. We have those details coming up. Premier Doug Ford's plan to expand alcohol retail will also allow the beer store to sell more than beer. Under the new agreement, the outlets could start to sell lottery tickets by late summer. And that has some convenience store owners concerned that it could hurt their business. Brittany Billette has more.
Many corner stores probably thought they were winning big when the province expanded booze sales. This convenience store owner says he was looking forward to it, but now he's disappointed he might have to share lottery ticket revenue with the beer store, calling it unfair.
I'm not technically happy with that part because they have their own business supported by the government, and now we don't have that support, which is government trying to do that support, but one way they are taking like a lottery sales from us.
A spokesperson for the beer store told CBC Radio Canada that it wouldn't confirm whether the beer store was in talks with the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation, but they pointed to the agreement announced a few weeks ago. It reads in part, "The province shall not prohibit the beer store from selling any other product, including lottery tickets, provided, however, that the beer store shall not be permitted to sell other categories of alcoholic beverages, cannabis products, or tobacco products." The province says this will offer the beer store further opportunities and give it new abilities to grow its business. The beer store would still have to go through the same process as all other lottery retailers. Ford adopted an accelerated plan to get beer and wine into convenience stores 16 months ahead of schedule. That will cost Ontario taxpayers at least $225 million. According to the LCBO, the lottery ticket clause would also apply to its stores. In a statement to CBC News, it said, "It is our understanding that there is nothing in the regulation that prevents us from selling some additional items at the LCBO, although at this time there are no plans to do so." The NDP's provincial finance critic says Ford's agreement doesn't align with mom-and-pop shops or people's major concerns.
Once again, misplaced priorities when 2.4 million Ontarians don't have a doctor. Why did this take precedence over the pressing issues of housing, healthcare, and education? So this is a premier who really has his own agenda.
Ford first pledged to expand alcohol sales during the 2018 election. 6 years later, he's making good on that promise. Starting on September 4th, convenience stores and gas stations will be able to sell low-alcohol beverages to its customers. Brittany Billette, CBC News, Toronto.
The Olympics are getting closer and closer, and Paris is making history in ways you might not have thought. We have that coming up after the break. In the Middle East, it's back to negotiations after Hamas responded to the latest ceasefire proposal. The U.S. Secretary of State made the announcement today in Doha.
A deal was on the table that was virtually identical to the proposal that Hamas put forward on May the 6th. A deal that the entire world is behind, a deal Israel's accepted, and Hamas could have answered with a single word: yes. Instead, Hamas waited nearly 2 weeks and then proposed more changes, a number of which go beyond positions that it previously taken and accepted.
Blinken says the U.S. will continue to work with negotiators from Qatar and Egypt, but in the meantime, the war between Israel and Hamas will continue. A deadly fire in a workers' housing complex has killed at least 40 people in southern Kuwait. Officials say the fire broke out in a building where large numbers of foreign workers reside. Many are believed to be from India. Rescuers managed to save dozens, but many others died from smoke inhalation. The fire is likely tied to safety code violations. An arrest warrant has been issued for the owner of the property, and the official cause is still under investigation. Olympic officials in Paris have set an ambitious target, being the most sustainable games yet. The organizers' goal is to limit emissions to 1.58 million metric tons of CO2 for the Summer Games and Paralympics that follow. That's still a lot of pollution, equivalent to about 1.3 million economy passengers flying one way from New York to Paris on a Boeing 787 jet. However, it's a lot less than the footprint of previous games. Paris is under additional pressure to be a sustainable model. The city hosted the 2015 UN climate talks that resulted in the Paris Agreement, the most significant international climate accord to date. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.